What if the real problem in civic redevelopment and urban development isn't the plan, it's the participation system? This is From Engagement to Civic Infrastructure, a system architecture proposal to rebuild the trust in the historic gas plant district. Hi, I'm Steve Diasio, founder of the School of Creativity and Innovation. Our work helps organizations and governments build modern tools for complex, high-stakes decisions with clarity, accountability, and speed. And today, we'll be talking about how to rebuild that trust with the historic gas plant district and alternatives and solutions based off of today's challenge. A generational transformation, such as the historic gas plant district, requires generational tooling. The challenge is messy inputs and low confidence engagement, which is what we're dealing with right now. The solution isn't to look in the past and say we've done enough and we just need to move forward. The solution is doubling down and creating a civic operating system, a professional way to turn community input into structured intelligence. The outcome is to reduce friction, lower litigation risks, and to verify alignment so decisions can move forward with legitimacy and trust. Right now, the engagement model suffers from what's called low data fidelity. The mayor came out and stressed they have the data and that they've talked to 1,000 participants, which might be a starting point, but it's far from any comprehensive mandate for a multi-generational project such as this. To put it in context, we're comparing 1,000 people, both in person and online, the city claims to have engaged with a current city of St. Petersburg that's roughly 250,000 plus residents. The issue isn't people don't care, it's the bandwidth. And these analog tools of the past, collected in 2001, when the world was very different, when technology was different, when the economy was different, when jobs were different, didn't capture the nuance at its scale of the past and the scale and the current residents of today. So there's this huge gap between the 1,000 participants, which we don't know who they are, background, do they represent the diversity of the city of St. Petersburg? And how does that compare to 250,000 residents that currently live here and more than 1 million that live in Pinellas Park? We are currently facing a legitimacy gap. And here's the friction. Legal compliance is not the same as social license. You can check every regulatory box and still have mistrust, delay, and lawsuits. Closing this gap is not political, it's risk management. It protects the public interest, and it's a project timeline at the same time. The solution is to become more transparent and is a form of operational excellence, best practices, and what leading innovator cities do. Any opaque process creates ambiguity, mistrust, and cost, which is currently what the circumstances are. Transparent frameworks create clarity, validation, alignment, execution, and improve velocity, meaning how the project gets completed and on time. Sophisticated developers actually prefer strong guardrails because it provides predictability and reduces capital risk. A civic operating system becomes the shared rails for everyone. Globally, cities are moving from town halls to civic systems. Past situations included the loudest voices dominated, but presently online inputs become unstructured noise. Future includes something very different. A larger synthesis, if it's supported by AI, but more importantly, it traces the inputs, verifies the data, and creates a representative sampling, because the goal is to elevate the participation from listening events, which what we're famous for, to system design, to make sure that we have traceable inputs verified that represent the diverse voices of the city. So what does civic operating systems look like? And what is the solution? A dedicated civic operating system includes three parts. One, the input, these multi-channel intakes, where in the past was just town halls and we're not really sure how they collected the data. Was it scribbled? Was it written? Was it copied and pasted? We don't know. A process layer, which is a way of synthesizing, understanding different types of analysis, verifying, fact-checking, and governance. And then finally the outputs, which includes the policies, the design adjustments, public dashboards, and all of this builds on transparency, neutrality, and fidelity. This may sound like a lot of work, especially for an organization or a city that may have not done this before, but there is ways and simple ways to implement it. And currently, AI is one tool that allows us to amplify this, not as a decision maker, but help to start and curate the raw voices of our community, synthesize the patterns, humans verify with a clear human-in-the-loop process, so we reduce any misrepresentation, consistently go back to the data and analyze it. And the point is to move beyond the loudest voice in a town hall to a truer representation of a community sentiment. And that can be visualized, can be on a community dashboard, and it's the humans who's always in the loop. One way to build trust is by creating a traceability dashboard. Traceability is the antidote to cynicism. Who are the voices? Why are they important? When inputs enter a black box, such as when we do a town hall and not sure how that data gets analyzed, collected, cleaned, trust collapse. We propose a system where influence is visible, feedback is submitted, synthesized, reviewed, connected to impact on design and those guardrails. People don't need to win. They need to see the pathway from voice to decision, and currently that's missing. When the mayor and city says we're going to reconsider and move forward with our proposals, and then asked, what is the next steps? And they say we're working on it, that's a clear red flag. There is no process, they're inventing it, and not transparent. There's a simple way to move forward, and a 90-day roadmap will provide a fast way of moving forward without being reckless. One, going back and creating a sprint to audit the design architecture of what the past completed in terms of the 1,000 people, how they analyzed it, the demographics, and to take stock of the exact process that took place, because that provides a foundation, and we'll understand where the big gaps are on whose actual voices we've already included and whose voices we need to include going forward. Two, have a second sprint that builds and tests digital intake, calibrate models, and select advisory cohorts that provide guardrails and policies on what we're looking for and best practices. Then we have a sprint 3, deploy and publish transparency reports, public metrics, dashboard, and immediately stabilize what's this current process is going on and build it into a long-term capability, not just for the historic gas plant, but for any major development that's happening in the city and surrounding, and because we can become a model for urban development going forward. A civic operating system lives or dies with governance. And there's 3 pillars: the open standards, so methodologies are public; independent oversight through a nonpartisan data trust approach; regular reporting, bi-weekly, data-heavy, rhetoric-free briefs. This fills a capability gap without replacing existing leadership. There are 3 KPI lanes that would need to be developed: participation velocity, where we're verifying the inputs, who are the individuals who are making them, if it's per week or bi-weekly. Currently, we have no idea who those 1,000 people are that the mayor and government has said that they've engaged with. A sediment analysis, which would provide a negative to constructive conversation about different topics such as affordable housing, baseball stadium, entertainment, museums, etc., and understand how the public views these over time and changes. And then decision traceability, a percentage of decisions linked to data. This moves measurements from attendance, which is the only factor that has been identified right now, 1,000 people have participated, to engagement fidelity, which shows a more dynamic way of collecting the voices and knowledge of the community. This is not just about building systems, it's about shifting the narrative to showing capability here locally in a thought leadership series. This thought leadership series reframes the public debate with executive level clarity, the math of participation, why process is infrastructure, what developers should want, AI is civic amplifier, and an invitation to raise the standards. This shows that St. Petersburg is raising the bar on what we demand of our government, what we demand of our people, and how we want the future of our city to be developed. We, as residents of St. Petersburg, have a choice. So here's the choice. Do we want to continue business as usual and trust that government and the 1,000 people they've talked to are really the voice of 250,000 people in St. Petersburg? Or do we want best practices and operational excellence for our future, for our city, and for our economic viability? The historic gas plant district deserves a governance model as ambitious as its architecture and vision of what it could be. And we're inviting a structured advisory engagement to design and implement this civic operating system. Because transparency is not political. It's how complex projects succeed. So what are the next steps? These are simple and practical ways to move forward. In the immediate term, audit the current engagement data structures. Who are these 1,000 people? What does the data look like? And is it really representative of the wider 250,000 people who live in St. Petersburg and the million plus in Pinellas County? In the short term, deploy a 5-part communication series around these parts and topics. Medium term, activate the 90-day roadmap. And if you want faster delivery, lower risk, and higher legitimacy, this is the move. Because St. Petersburg and the future of its citizens demand more.